Listen, I have been alive for 342 cycles. That is a long time, even by Quellan standards. My carapace has seen 17 different galactic councils, 4 trade wars, and 1 spectacularly boring peace treaty that lasted exactly 6 days before someone violated it. So when I tell you that humans are the most terrifying species in the known universe, you better believe I know what I am talking about. My name is Vork. Just Vork. No fancy titles, no hereditary nonsense. I work, or rather I worked, as a protocol officer for the Galactic Assembly. You know, the kind of job where you make sure Ambassador Clath from Sector 9 does not eat Ambassador Mora from Sector 12 because, apparently, that is still considered rude in most civilizations. The day everything changed started like any other boring rotation. The assembly hall buzzed with the usual chaos. Delegates arguing, translators malfunctioning, someone's atmospheric requirements clashing with someone else's atmospheric requirements, standard fare. Then she walked in. Captain Risa Mendez. Human. Late 30s by their reckoning, which meant absolutely nothing to me at the time, average height for her species. Dark hair pulled back in what they call a bun. Eyes the color of earth soil after rain, whatever that means. She wore a simple gray suit, no weapons visible, no entourage of guards, no floating security drones. Just her, and a briefcase. I remember thinking, oh great, another species trying to join the big leagues. How adorable. How predictable. They always come in with their demands, their posturing, their threats. Then they realize the Assembly has been playing this game for 10,000 years, and they slink back to their home worlds with their tails between their legs, or whatever appendage they use for slinking. Risa Mendez did not slink. She stood at the entrance of the Assembly Hall, and I swear on my third liver, the temperature in the room dropped. Not literally. The environmental controls were functioning perfectly. But something shifted. The air felt different. Heavy, like the moment before a storm breaks. When you know something big is coming but you cannot quite see it yet. The Grand Arbiter, a pompous Tuluvian named Krax, noticed her first. He had been in the middle of a speech about trade regulations, thrilling stuff, truly. The kind of content that makes you question your life choices. He stopped mid-sentence, his 7 eyes swiveling toward the entrance. Who, he boomed, his voice amplified by the chamber's acoustics, dares interrupt these proceedings? Risa Mendez smiled. Not a big smile, not a threatening smile, just a small, polite curve of her lips that somehow made my spinal plates shiver. Captain Risa Mendez, she said. Her voice was not loud. She did not shout. She did not need to. The chamber's audio sensors picked up every word and broadcast it with crystal clarity, representing the Terran coalition. I believe we have an appointment. Krax's face, and he has 12 distinct facial sections. So this was quite a feat. Turned an interesting shade of purple. An appointment? There is no appointment on the schedule. Who authorized your presence here? You did, Risa said. She walked forward, her shoes making soft clicking sounds on the polished floor. Click, click, each step measured, each step deliberate. 6 months ago. Standard diplomatic request, filed through proper channels, approved by the Subcommittee on New Species Integration. I quickly checked my datapad. She was right. How had I missed this? How had everyone missed this? Krax sputtered. The subcommittee does not have the authority to grant assembly floor access without full council approval. Actually, Rasa said, still walking, still smiling that small smile. According to Assembly Charter, Section 12, Paragraph 47, Subsection 9, they do, for species meeting specific technological and social development criteria, which humans do. I have the documentation if you would like to review it. She did not wait for an answer. She reached the speaker's platform, set down her briefcase, and opened it with a soft click. Inside were data chips, hundreds of them, all neatly organized. Krax's eyes narrowed, all 7 of them, simultaneously. You cannot expect us to believe that your species, barely spacefaring for 2 centuries, meets our criteria. I do not expect you to believe anything, Risa replied. Her tone remained pleasant, conversational, like she was discussing the weather rather than potentially upending galactic politics. I expect you to examine the evidence. which is what these contain: full documentation of human technological achievements, social structures, economic systems, and military capabilities. That last word hung in the air. Military capabilities. A Draxian delegate, all scales and attitude, laughed. It sounded like rocks grinding together. Military? You bring military records to a diplomatic assembly? How charmingly primitive. Risa turned to face him. The smile never wavered. Is it primitive to acknowledge reality? You have a military. The Teluvians have a military. The Quellan Confederacy, where my friend Vork here hails from, has 3 separate military branches. Why should humans pretend otherwise? I felt my carapace heat up. How did she know my name? How did she know my species? I was a low-level protocol officer. Nobody knew me. Nobody cared about me. The Draxian delegate, whose name was Kor and who had a reputation for being, let us say, aggressive in negotiations, stood up. His bulk made the platform shake. You dare compare your infant species to civilizations that have existed for millennia? No, Risa said. I would never make such a comparison. That would be insulting. Kor nodded, satisfied. Finally, some sense from the primitive. Insulting to humans. Risa continued. Given that we have achieved in 200 years what took most of you 10,000. Oh no. Oh no, no, no. You do not say that in the assembly. You do not challenge the established order. You do not insult delegates who could vaporize your home planet with a single battle fleet. Kor's scales turned from green to bright red. A bad sign. A very bad sign. You dare. I dare nothing, Risa said. Her voice remained level. Calm. I state facts, which are available in the data I have provided. You can review them at your leisure, or you can continue to bluster. Your choice. The assembly hall exploded into noise. Delegates shouting, translators trying desperately to keep up, security officers moving toward their positions. This was about to become a disaster. I could see it coming like a meteorite heading straight for a populated planet. And Risa Mendez just stood there, waiting. Krax hammered his gavel, a massive thing that could probably double as a weapon. Order! Order! Captain Mendez, you are out of line. You will submit your documentation through proper channels and await review. This may take several cycles. Several cycles, Risa repeated. As in several years. That is correct. I see. She closed her briefcase. Click. Then I suppose I should inform you that while you review our documentation at your leisure, the Krelix Dominion has already contacted Earth. They have offered us a military alliance, exclusive trading rights, technology exchange, all very generous terms. The hall went silent, completely silent. You could have heard a microbe sneeze. The Krelix Dominion. The species that had been causing problems in the outer sectors for decades. The ones everyone was worried about but nobody wanted to confront directly. Those Krelix. You are bluffing, Kor said, but his voice had lost some of its confidence. Risa opened her briefcase again, pulled out another data chip, held it up. Complete communication logs, proposals, draft treaties, everything. The Krelix ambassador Threnix has been very persistent, very persuasive. He offered us 73 planets in disputed territory just as a signing bonus. Imagine what the full deal includes. My brain was spinning. Actually spinning. The Krelix offering disputed territory to humans? That changed everything. If humans allied with the Krelix, the balance of power in this sector would shift overnight. The assembly would lose influence. Trade routes would be compromised. Wars could start. Krax's purple face had gone pale. You would not dare align with the Krelix. They are aggressors. Warmongers. They violate every principle of civilized space. True, Risa agreed. But they are also honest about what they want. Unlike this assembly, which hides behind bureaucracy and pretends neutrality while allowing stronger species to dominate weaker ones. At least with the Krelix, we know where we stand. This is blackmail, a Quellan delegate named Threx said. He spoke for the first time since the session began, which meant the situation had gotten serious. Threx only spoke when things were serious. No, Risa said. This is negotiation. I came here to offer humanity's participation in the assembly, as equals, with full voting rights and access to shared resources. If you accept, we will decline the Krelix offer. If you refuse, well, she shrugged. We make the best deal available to us. Economics 101. And what makes you think, Karak said slowly, dangerously, that we would accept such terms? Risa smiled again. That same small, polite, absolutely terrifying smile. Because the alternative is worse. Much worse. And you know it. She picked up her briefcase and walked toward the exit. Click, 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 each step echoing in the silent hall. Wait, Threx said. You just arrive here, make demands, threaten us, and then leave. Risa paused, turned. I am not threatening anyone. I am presenting options. You have 48 Earth hours to decide. After that, I return to Earth and recommend we accept the Krellick's proposal. Have a pleasant rotation, gentlemen. She walked out. The assembly hall erupted again, but this time it was different. Panicked, angry, afraid. Delegates were shouting at each other, at Krax, at anyone who would listen. I just sat there, my datapad forgotten in my hands, and thought, what in the 7 frozen hells just happened? The next cycle was absolute madness. Emergency sessions, secret meetings. Delegates scrambling to analyze the data Risa had left behind, and the data, it turned out, was real. Every bit of it. Human technology was not as advanced as the older species, true, but it was advancing fast. Scary fast. Their military, while smaller, was efficient and ruthless. Their economic systems were adaptable. Their social structures were chaotic but effective. But what really terrified everyone, what kept the delegates up during their rest cycles, was the mention of the Krelliks. Because if humans allied with them, it was game over for the current power structure. I found myself assigned to a special committee tasked with, and I quote, determining the human threat level and appropriate response options. Fancy words for figure out if we should let them in or blow them up. The committee met in a secure chamber. 12 delegates, all representing major species, all looking worried. Threx spoke first. The human data has been verified. They are not exaggerating their capabilities. If anything, they are downplaying them. Impossible, Kor said, but he did not sound convinced. Their military simulations alone are disturbing, a Virani delegate named Solta added. She was known for her tactical brilliance. They have developed strategies that account for fighting enemies with superior technology. They assume they will always be outgunned and plan accordingly. That kind of thinking is dangerous. Or practical, Threx countered. Humans evolved on a death world. Class 7, hostile megafauna. Extreme weather. Limited resources. They had to be adaptable to survive. It shows in everything they do. A death world, Threx muttered. He had been quiet since the committee started, which was unusual. I had forgotten that detail. Most species from death worlds do not survive long enough to reach space, Solta said. Those that do are usually so traumatized they become peaceful. Humans, it seems, took a different path. They weaponized their trauma, I said. Everyone turned to look at me. I felt my carapace heat up again. Sorry, just an observation. No, Threx said. Continue. I swallowed. Humans call their planet Earth, but they also call it Terra. From an old language, it means ground, soil, the foundation. They named their planet after something solid, something stable, because nothing else in their environment was. They learned to trust only what they could verify, what they could test, what they could prove. That is why Captain Mendez brought data instead of promises. That is why she does not bluff. Humans do not waste time on things that do not work. The committee was silent. They also have a saying, I continued, surprised I was still talking. Actions speak louder than words. It means demonstrations are more valuable than promises. Captain Mendez did not come here to beg. She came here to show us what happens if we refuse. She gave us a choice, but she made we understood the consequences. So what do you recommend? Krax asked. Everyone looked at me. Me. Orktheo protocol officer. Borko spent his career making sure nobody ate anybody else. Borko had never been asked his opinion on anything important. I took a deep breath. I recommend we accept their terms, immediately, because if we do not, someone else will. And that someone will gain an ally that could reshape this sector. Humans are young and experienced, but they learn fast. Give them 200 more years and they will surpass most of us. Give them 1,000 and they will rewrite the rules entirely. We can either be their partners or their obstacles. I know which one I would rather be. Kor slammed his fist on the table. This is cowardice. We are the established powers. We do not bow to demands from newcomers. You are absolutely right, Threx said. We do not bow to demands. We make intelligent decisions based on available information, and the information says humans are coming whether we like it or not. The only question is whether they come as allies or enemies. The vote was held that evening, 8-4 in favor of accepting human membership with full rights.
I was assigned to inform Captain Mendez. Lucky me.
I found her at a small observation deck overlooking the assembly hall's main plaza. She stood alone, hands clasped behind her back, watching ships come and go. Captain Mendez, I said. She turned, smiled. Work. I was hoping to see you again. The assembly has voted, I said. They accept humanity's membership. Full rights. Full participation. Congratulations. Thank you, she said, but she did not sound surprised or excited, just satisfied. May I ask you something? I said. Of course. The Krelliks. Were they really offering you an alliance? Risa looked at me, those earth-soil-colored eyes studying my face. Yes. And you were really prepared to accept if we refused? She was quiet for a moment. Then she said no, but you did not need to know that. I felt my carapace go cold. You bluffed. After everything I said about humans not bluffing, you bluffed. I did not bluff about the Krelliks' offer, she said. That was real. I simply neglected to mention that we had already decided to decline. The terms were terrible. They wanted military bases on Earth, control of our resource distribution. Essentially, they wanted to own us. We would never accept that. But you made us think you would. I made you consider possibilities, she corrected. There is a difference. I never lied. I presented facts and let you draw conclusions. If those conclusions motivated better decision-making, well, that is just good diplomacy. I did not know whether to be angry or impressed. You manipulated the entire assembly. I gave them a choice, Risa said. A real one. They could accept humans as partners, or risk us becoming someone else's problem. They chose partnership. That is what I wanted. That is what Earth wanted. Everyone win. And if they had called your bluff, if they had refused, she looked back out at the plaza, at the ships, at the endless stars beyond, then I would have gone home and we would have figured out another way. Humans are good at figuring things out. That is what we do. I realized then why humans terrified me. Not because they were violent, not because they were technologically advanced, but because they were smart. Ruthlessly, efficiently, terrifyingly smart. And they did not need to shout to make you listen. They just needed to show you the alternative. 3 months passed. 3 months of watching Captain Risa Mendez operate in the Galactic Assembly. And let me tell you, it was like watching a predator that had been dropped into a pond full of fish who thought they were sharks. The first assembly session with human voting rights was, well, educational. For everyone. The topic was resource allocation in Sector 15, standard procedure. The Televians wanted more mining rights. The Draxians wanted trade route priority. Everyone was arguing over the same tired points they had been arguing about for the past 50 cycles. Nothing ever changed. Nothing ever got resolved. Just endless debate followed by compromise that satisfied nobody. Then Risa stood up. Point of order, she said. Her voice cut through the arguing like a plasma blade through butter. Kragax looked annoyed. He always looked annoyed these days. The chair recognizes Captain Mendez. Thank you, Grand Arbiter. I have reviewed the proposals for Sector 15, all 17 of them, and I have noticed something interesting. Every single proposal assumes current population levels and current technology. None of them account for projected growth or technological advancement, which seems, forgive me, short-sighted. Corsair growled. He had been doing that a lot lately. Population projections are unreliable. Technology advancement is unpredictable. We work with current data. Do you? Risa pulled out her data pad. Because according to assembly records, the Draxian population has grown by 12% over the last 20 cycles. Teluvian mining efficiency has improved by 8%. Yet your proposals assume zero growth, zero improvement. Why? Silence. The kind of silence that happens when someone points out something obvious that everyone has been ignoring. Because, Threx said slowly, accounting for growth requires long-term planning, which requires consensus, which requires, well, he gestured at the arguing delegates, which requires actual cooperation. Risa finished. I understand. So here is what I propose. Humans will develop a comprehensive resource allocation model for Sector 15, free of charge. We will account for projected growth, technological advancement, and potential conflicts. We will present it to the Assembly in 2 weeks. You can accept it, modify it, or reject it, but at least you will have actual data to argue about instead of opinions. Humans do not have the expertise, Kor said. But he sounded uncertain. Correct, Risa said. We do not have expertise in alien resource management, but we have expertise in problem solving, and right now the Assembly has a problem. Either you let us try to solve it, or you continue this argument for another 50 cycles, your choice. Again, she sat down. 2 weeks later, the human proposal landed. 400 pages of analysis, resource distribution models, growth projections, conflict resolution frameworks, alternative scenarios. It was thorough. It was detailed. It was, and this surprised everyone, fair. The humans had not given themselves any special advantages. They had simply created a system that worked for everyone. The Assembly adopted it unanimously. Unanimously? Do you know how rare that is? I had been working here for decades, and I had never seen a unanimous vote on anything more controversial than break schedules. That was when I realized what humans were doing. They were not trying to dominate. They were making themselves indispensable. I started paying closer attention to Risa after that, not in a creepy way, in a professional way. She fascinated me. How could someone so soft-looking, so apparently harmless, be so effective? One evening, I found her in the diplomatic quarters cafeteria. She was eating something from Earth. Noodles, I think she called them. Long, stringy things covered in red sauce. May I join you? I asked. She looked up, surprised. Wartak. Of course, please. I sat down with my own meal. Processed protein paste. Delicious. Well, edible. Well, nutritious. Taste was overrated anyway.
Can I ask you something? I said.
You keep asking if you can ask me things, Risa said, smiling. You know you can just ask, right? It is polite, I said. Where I come from, directness without permission is considered aggressive. Interesting. On Earth, too much politeness is sometimes considered insincere. That explains a lot, I muttered. She laughed. Actually laughed. It was a nice sound. Warm? What did you want to know? Why are you really here? And do not tell me it is just about Assembly membership. You could have achieved that through normal channels. Slower, yes, but safer. Instead, you risked everything with that stunt at your first appearance. Why? Risa set down her eating utensils, looked at me with those serious eyes. Can you keep a secret, Vorp? I am a protocol officer. My entire job is keeping secrets. Fair point. She leaned forward. Humanity is scared. Terrified, actually. We reached the stars and found out we are surrounded by civilizations thousands of years older than us. More advanced, more established. And most of them see us as either curiosities or threats. We needed to establish ourselves quickly. Make ourselves valuable. Because valuable things get protected. Curiosities get studied. Threats get eliminated. So you manipulated your way into the Assembly to make humans valuable. I prefer the term strategic positioning, but yes. Essentially, she picked up her noodles again. Humans have a saying, the best defense is a good offense. We could not outfight the established powers, we could not outtech them, but we could outthink them. We could see problems they had stopped seeing because they had been living with them for so long. We could offer solutions they had not considered because they were too invested in existing systems. And the Krelix threat. Insurance, she said, making sure the Assembly understood that refusing us had consequences, not because we wanted to work with the Krelix, but because someone else might see opportunity where the Assembly saw risk. I was quiet for a moment, processing this. You know what the scary part is? It worked. Perfectly. You got everything you wanted. Not everything, Risa said. I wanted humans to be seen as partners, as equals. Right now we are seen as clever newcomers, useful, but not quite trustworthy. That will take time to change. How much time? She shrugged. However long it takes. Humans are patient when we need to be. That is a lie, I said. Everything I have read about humans suggests you are the least patient species in known space. Risa grinned. Okay, you caught me. We are terrible at being patient, but we are excellent at pretending to be patient while secretly working on faster solutions. Does that count? Despite myself, I laughed. My carapace plates rattled, which was the Quellan equivalent of a laugh. You are dangerous, Captain Mendez. Only to people who underestimate us, she said. Which fortunately or unfortunately, depending on your perspective, is most people. 6 months into human membership, the crisis happened. The Virani Confederation, a mid-sized power in the neighboring sector, was facing a rebellion. 3 of their colony worlds wanted independence. The Confederation wanted to use military force to crush the rebellion. The colonies wanted assembly intervention and protection. Standard galactic politics. Messy, complicated, no good solutions. The assembly debated for weeks. Some delegates supported the Confederation, arguing that internal matters were internal matters. Others supported the colonies, arguing that oppression was oppression regardless of legality. Most just wanted the problem to go away so they could get back to arguing about trade routes. Risa said nothing. For weeks, she attended sessions, took notes, but never spoke. Never voted, just watched. Then one day she requested private meetings with both sides. The Confederation representatives and the colony representatives, separate. I was assigned as observer protocol requirements. The meeting with the Confederation representatives happened first. 3 angry Virani delegates, scales bristling, voices harsh. The humans have no business interfering in Virani affairs, the lead delegate Graxus said. This is an internal matter. I agree, Risa said. That stopped Graxus mid-rant. You agree? Absolutely. Internal matters should be handled internally. The Assembly has no right to dictate how the Confederation governs its territories. I stared at her. What was she doing? Graxus looked suspicious. Then why did you request this meeting? To offer you a different perspective, Risa said. You want to use military force to reclaim the colonies. That will work short-term, but what happens after? Rebellions happen for reasons. If you crush this one without addressing those reasons, another rebellion will happen, and another, and eventually you will spend more resources fighting your own people than governing them. That is not a sustainable strategy. So you suggest we simply let them go? Another delegate, Taurus, asked mockingly. No, I suggest you figure out why they want to leave and fix those problems. Or if the problems cannot be fixed, negotiate a separation that benefits both sides. Humans have experience with this. We have had multiple regions demand independence throughout our history. Some we fought to keep, some we let go, some we negotiated with. The ones we negotiated with, interestingly, often maintained close ties with Earth anyway. Funny how that works. You want us to negotiate with rebels, Graxus said flatly. I want you to make the smart choice instead of the easy choice. But that is your decision. I am simply offering information. She stood. Thank you for your time. The meeting with the colony representatives was different. 5 delegates, hopeful, desperate, angry. Will the Assembly help us? Their leader Macron asked immediately. That depends, Risa said. What do you want? Really want? Independence, freedom, the right to govern ourselves. And after you get that, what happens then? Macron looked confused. We build our own civilization. On our own terms. With what resources? What technology? What trade partners? The Confederation controls all of those things right now. If you gain independence tomorrow, how do you survive next month? The question hung in the air. Nobody answered. I am not trying to discourage you, Risa continued. I am trying to make sure you have actually thought this through. Independence is meaningless if it leads to economic collapse or military conquest by someone else. You need a plan, a real plan. Not just a dream. The Assembly could provide aid, another delegate Sura said. Protection. Maybe. Maybe not. The Assembly is not a charity. Every member species has its own interests. Right now you are a problem that nobody wants to deal with. Make yourselves valuable and that changes. How? Macron asked. That is the question you should be asking the Confederation, Risa said. What can you offer them that makes negotiation more attractive than war? What do you have that they need? Find that and you have leverage. Find leverage and you have option. She stood. Thank you for your time. 1 week later, the Confederation and the colonies announced a surprise agreement. The colonies would receive substantial autonomy, including self-governance on internal matters. The Confederation would maintain control over defense and external trade. Both sides would establish a joint economic council to manage resources. It was not perfect, but it worked. And most importantly, it happened without assembly intervention. How did Risa do it? I still do not know. Not exactly. But I suspect she told each side something similar. That fighting was expensive. That compromise was cheaper. That smart enemies become allies while stubborn enemies become corpses. She never took credit. When asked, she said the Varani had figured it out themselves. That humans had simply asked a few questions, but I knew better. Those questions had been precisely calculated, designed to make both sides see what they were missing, to shift perspectives just enough to make negotiation possible. That was when I truly understood what made humans dangerous. It was not their weapons. It was not their technology. It was their ability to see connections others missed, to find solutions in places others had stopped looking, to turn enemies into allies not through force or bribery but through making everyone realize that cooperation benefited them more than conflict. Terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. 1 year after humanity joined the Assembly, I was promoted, Director of Interspecies Relations. Fancy title, more responsibility, better pay. And according to the promotion notice, the recommendation had come from multiple delegates, including, mysteriously, several who had opposed human membership. I went to find Risa. Found her as usual, working in her office. Data pads everywhere, reports piled high. She looked tired but satisfied. I got promoted. She looked up, smiled. Congratulations, Director Vork. Well deserved. Did you have something to do with this? Why would you think that? Because things happen around you, Captain. Things that seem random but turn out to be very deliberate. She leaned back in her chair. Can I tell you another secret? I feel like I do not have a choice. You always have a choice, Vork. That is the point. She paused. You were wasted as a protocol officer. You see things, you understand people. You could have stayed in that comfortable position forever. Or you could step up and actually make a difference. I simply made sure the right people noticed what I had already seen. So you manipulated my career. I recommended a qualified candidate for a position they were suited for. If that is manipulation, then every boss in the universe is guilty. I sat down. My carapace felt heavy. Why? Why help me? Because good people in important positions make the universe better, Risa said simply. And because humans need allies. Real allies. People who understand us, who see us as more than threats or tools. You see us, Vorthak. You always have. Even when you were terrified of us, I am still terrified of you. She laughed. Good. A little fear keeps people sharp. Just remember that fear and respect are not opposites. They can coexist. I left her office feeling strange, honored, worried, hopeful. All at once. That was 5 years ago. Today I sit in my office, Director of Interspecies Relations, and I watch as humanity continues to reshape the Galactic Assembly. Not through conquest, not through intimidation, through competence, through cooperation, through making themselves so valuable, so essential that nobody can imagine the Assembly without them. Risa Mendez is still here, still working, still asking the right questions at the right times, still terrifying everyone who pays attention, but now, other species are starting to copy human methods, starting to think about problems differently, starting to ask what if instead of accepting what is. The universe is changing. Slowly, carefully, but definitely. And it all started because one human walked into the assembly hall and did not shout, did not threaten, did not demand. She just showed us what was possible and let us choose. That is the human way I've learned. They do not force you to listen. They just make it very clear what happens if you do not. And that, my friends, is why humans are the most terrifying species in the known universe. Because they do not need to conquer you. They just need to make you realize that working with them benefits you more than working against them. And once you realize that, it is already too late. You have already lost and won at the same time. Welcome to the age of humanity. It is going to be one hell of a ride,